It's this notion of, oh, okay, we have an AI firewall, again, the term, right? We have an AI uh, policy enforcement point in front of our device, and we are now processing that traffic to make sure that we're protecting it against prompt injection on the way in, or we are protecting against disclosure on the way out, right? And one thing that that concerns me is that what people may not realize is that the compute power needed to do that kind of inspection, right? It's not trivial, right? So you can't. I think that designing an environment, designing an architecture, where, oh look, we're going to have a single device or even a series of devices that are going to take all of the AI related traffic in our organization, and we're going to be scanning it at that point of there. I don't know if that's the way forward, right? Or if it is, it's going to be very expensive from a compute perspective, right? Is this the kind of thing that we should be moving to other architectures, right? So maybe it's a better approach to, yes, it's never fun to re-architect things, but maybe we should be re-architecting apps to make these as library calls within the application and distribute the compute cost rather than everything at the network device, right? So this is the kind of thing that we are asking to solve different problems now. And we have to think about them differently. I think this is one of the ways that comes to me. But there's the flip side, right? I mean, oh, okay, now does it mean you have to touch every application? Kind of does, right?
I think it's funny that we talk about the fact that context is expensive like this, because it really is. If you think about, for people who have been doing security or networking for a long time, think about something as simple as like a 5-tuple match. Why do we do
Oh,
5-tuple? Because it's relatively cheap when you think about processing power, because I only have 5 different inputs that I have to scan for, source, destination, that kind of thing. Even moving to like a 7-tuple is relatively inexpensive, but still more expensive because you have more fields that you have to look for. But then you start adding in context, and that's where it gets so ridiculous. And I have a horror story from back in the day. I was testing a Firewall's web filter, and it was a very simple web filter back in the day. Like, it would do word matching. So if you told it, block any web page that contains the following word. And I wanted to test it out one day because I was trying to see if it would be a valid alternative for a school that was using a web filter. And so what I did was I set up a simple test on a specific subnet, and I said, block any instances of the word breast. Because you would think, how hard can that be? Well, context, gentlemen, because the front page of MSN that day had a story about breast cancer. And as soon as people would use MSN as their homepage, which most Internet Explorer machines back in 2008 used that, bang, came up with my block screen, and everybody freaked out. And I'm like, what's going on? In my little limited test, all of a sudden, everybody's reporting that don't report this because I didn't mean to do this. And it turns out that context matters, because if you're talking about that part of the female anatomy in reference to something sexual in a school, that's a problem. If you're talking about it from a health perspective, it's not a problem. But in order to understand the context of what's around that, the amount of compute power in 2008 didn't exist to do that. And now we're at the point where it does, but it still costs because you have to pipe all that information through some kind of a processor to be able to come out the other side and go, okay, yes, this is a valid thing, or no, that's not a valid thing. And people just think that computers are magic like that. And so we tend to cut back to the shortcuts, right? We can do 5-tuple matches with an ASIC. We can do 7-tuple matches with a DPU. And we just do that because it's so much faster. Kind of like, you see port numbers, and I'm the same way, right? I'm going to block all traffic here, or I'm going to route all traffic to that port through this thing. And that's not what people want. They just want to be like, okay, this thing came up and suddenly we're not going to talk about it. So I don't want to put in keyword filters or blocks or anything. I want you to understand that in this context, that word is bad. And that's hard.